high-sounding objectives, where does rising India stand at the end of the first decade of the 21st century? On the one hand, we have high rates of economic growth and rapid development in several fields. On the other hand, when it comes to moving towards a knowledge society, there are huge weaknesses and gaps on the ground. Tremendous foundational work waits to be done. The situation is underlined by the still dismal statistics on school enrollment, on dropouts, on the low percentage of enrollment in colleges and so on. And this is a stark problem, especially in the Hindi-speaking part of India. Not that other parts have overcome these weaknesses and gaps, but it is a huge problem there, and this is a major challenge. Our Nobel laureate, a Nobel Prize-winning economist, Professor Amartya Sen, has for decades now been calling attention to the gaps, to the inequities, to the imbalances in Indian education, and the huge social, economic and moral costs of not getting our priorities right. After taking balanced stock of India's achievements and failures over half a century after independence, that's the time he wrote a major work on this, and giving the country high marks for doing very much better than most countries in the post-colonial world in being able to maintain democracy. He gave high marks to India for maintaining democracy compared with many other developing countries. After doing this, Professor Sen indicted our educational progress for, quote, being incredibly slow and also unbelievably unequal, end quote. In particular, he has contrasted the attention and resources given to higher education, not that they are too much, not that they should be reduced or diluted, but he contrasted this against the neglect of basic education. The Economist has underlined the implications for both social opportunity and for economic development in India of continuing along this trodden but distorted path of development, educational development. One of our major strengths is a system of higher education, in particular technological and professional education. That is the envy of the developing world. Let me offer some examples. As the whole world knows, we have scored dazzling successes in the software development and export sector of information technology. Successes that made a Chinese president hail India as an emerging IT superpower, which even we wouldn't claim. But the president of China, former President Jiang Zemin, visiting Bangalore, described or characterized India as an IT superpower. There is interesting research that brings out the contribution made to the development of India's software industry and software exports by the burgeoning sector of private engineering colleges in the 4 southern states plus Maharashtra. The correlation between the burgeoning of private engineering colleges in our 4 southern states, especially Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh, but also Karnataka, now Kerala also, plus Maharashtra. You should never forget Maharashtra, which has been doing well in this respect. The correlation between that and the success of software exports. Those, I can provide the references to those interested later. Initially, in many of these colleges, there were problems of quality, of shortage of experienced faculty, and weak physical infrastructure. But a research finding, a heartening research finding is that over the past 2 decades, software exports took hold in states where engineering graduates were plentiful. I believe the advantage that came from this relatively early start, the advantages that came from this have stayed. Even here, experts identify serious gaps that need urgent remedial action. For example, commenting on the commonly heard complaint that youngsters in India are not anymore inclined to pursue a career in basic sciences. Professor Rajan would be particularly interested in this area. They are not inclined to pursue a career in basic sciences. Noting this, the Planning Commission's task force report of a decade ago identified several reasons for this. It estimated that while in India as a whole, there were 40 to 50 engineering colleges offering excellent education, and between 200 and 300 others offering good engineering education. The situation in the basic sciences was radically different in terms of a lack of schools of reasonable standards. Even not that all our engineering colleges are good, but there are hundreds that are good, some which are excellent. BIT would be towards the top of that list. And but even allowing for the mediocrity and the poor quality in the majority of engineering colleges in India, that is a positive thing in comparison with how our institutions perform in the basic sciences. This was noted by the Planning Commission about a decade ago. I don't know if the situation has changed very much over the past decade. I don't have the information on it, but that's an interesting question. To such a critical perspective, I add the importance of raising general standards in the various arts, humanities and social science fields. And perhaps in the next phase of development, BIT or associated institutions would wish to consider how they can contribute to this area as well. Not that you can all do it under the same roof or in the same institution. Having a strong focus is very good, but this gap something needs to be done about it, raising standards in the various arts, humanities and social science fields. In contrast to the present practice of seeing many of the disciplines in these fields as soft subjects, great centers of learning in Western countries benefit from synergies flowing from the integration of undergraduate and postgraduate levels of education, and also the integration of various aspects of higher education, notably research and high caliber teaching. The general separation of undergraduate education from postgraduate education and of teaching from research in our academic institutions, in India's colleges and universities, means that very often we just don't harvest these synergies which are well known in developed countries or advanced contexts. This weakness is noted by various experts, as is the need to invest more funds in our universities and generally improve the economics of higher education. What is clear is that if our society fails to invest wisely, cost effectively, and on a big enough scale in priority areas in education, if we fail to do it, our comparative advantage, such as it is, will be eroded fairly quickly, because there are other developing countries doing quite well. This brings us to the heart of the educational challenge in India. It is, I believe, the challenge of striking a balance between or reconciling two great objectives. The first objective is the pursuit of quality and excellence on the one side. If you don't provide quality education, you are just wasting your time. The other objective is the imperative need to make education at all levels accessible in a progressive modern sense. Quality and accessibility, excellence and affordability, aiming high and throwing the doors wide open, these must not be seen as contradictory, conflicting goals, even if it is easier to reconcile these goals in principle than in practice. The tension between these two great goals defines the nature of all serious intellectual and cultural endeavor in a society that strives to excel while being non-elitist, truly democratic in a contemporary sense, and just. Emphasize one objective too much and the endeavor gets into trouble. It's against the backdrop of this great challenge that I see the achievements and mandate of BIT, a relatively young institution based in rural Tamil Nadu. It has developed inspiringly with a sense of mission and won an enviable reputation in pursuing excellence and broadening social opportunity. The rise of girls and young women from various social strata is a very impressive factor you witness across South India, maybe other parts of India as well, but particularly in South India and also states like Maharashtra and Gujarat. This is the age of girls and young women outscoring boys and young men in academic field after academic field. This is not yet fully reflected in their rise and development in professional careers. But when we were coming in procession here, Professor Rajan observed to me, made a very interesting point as we were walking down. Maybe we were not supposed to talk, but we did a little bit towards the end, from when we started. He observed to me the importance, the supreme importance of motivation within the family. He said that mothers and even grandmothers in this region tell the girl, you must do what we couldn't do, didn't have the opportunity to do. That surely is a key social and moral factor behind the rise of young women, especially in South India. And I'm delighted to see such success here. We just saw a board who got the top ranks and so on. That's quite a challenge to the young men here and those who will follow them in this institution. This is promoted by a leading industrial group. BIT has set itself ambitious goals. It has set the bar high for education in the engineering, technological fields and also applied science fields, and gone for accreditation and certification of the first rank. It's no surprise that you have won several awards and accolades. Experience teaches us that several factors go into the achievement of quality and excellence in education. First, the curriculum, the content of the courses along with the teaching philosophy and methods. Secondly, the quality and commitment of the faculty. This perhaps is the most important of all, full-time and adjunct. Thirdly, the system of admissions, by which I mean its integrity, its fairness, its openness and its transparency. Fourthly, the quality of the infrastructure and facilities. That means everything required for the broad purpose of acquiring knowledge and developing capabilities. Fifthly, and I think this is very, very strongly developed here, I was most impressed today because early this morning the chairman took us for a walk around the campus and we saw the real interaction, interplay between industry and academia. What an advantage BIT has here because of its close linkages. But of course there are also many external linkages here. This is, I think, very important. Finally, placement, which speaks to the value of the knowledge imparted in specialized fields. I requested a note on the placement details for your 2011 batch, and I was very happy to see a little sheet given to me. Total number of eligible students, 802. Placement on day one, Cognizant Technologies, 390. HCL, second day, 142. Total number of companies, 24. And 649 students have been placed out of 802, and I hope the others will be placed soon enough. So this is, I think, very, very important and speaks to why this has been so successful. BIT has all these things, all these factors I mentioned in fine measure. I want to make special mention of the attention it has paid to developing the synergies, which, as I mentioned, are lacking in most of our institutions of higher learning. This means a planned progressive effort to integrate undergraduate and postgraduate levels of education, BE, ME, BTech,